Hi, my name is Danica, and today I have my May wrap-up. So apparently I read 11 books in May, which I don't really remember doing. I didn't think I did a lot of reading last month, but apparently I did. The first book I finished was Pajama Party by Peggy Swenson. I started this during the April readathon, but then I just sat down and finished it. And it's kind of weird to talk about a pulp novel because objectively, this is a terrible book. There are rape scenes for almost every character, but it was also interesting to read because of the place that lesbian pulp has in lesbian literary history. And I also learned that this is less erotica, which I was expecting, and more soap opera. It definitely is trying to appeal to you based on that erotica aspect, but the writing itself is more soap opera. Definitely one I think that has more value for its kitsch appeal than for actual reading value. Then I read Lagoon by Nnedi Okorafor. This is a really interesting book because of the way it's put together. I found it a little bit slow for me to read to start with just because there's so many different perspective shifts. That's also the strength of it, all these interweaving stories and all the different perspectives. There's a lot of really interesting things going on in this book. Basically, it's like a fantasy book about an alien invasion set in the city of Lagos. There's sort of cameos of different gods, there's a highway that likes to collect bones, and there are animal points of view throughout the novel. So I found this really interesting in an intellectual way, but less engaged with the story itself. I also finished rereading volumes 2 and 3 of the Unwritten series. This is my favorite graphic novel series, and the series has come to a close recently. I've bought all of the remaining volumes that I haven't read yet, but I wanted to go through and reread before I finish the series, so I am slowly doing that, and I still love them. I think if you are a book lover, if you're a lover of stories, definitely check out The Unwritten. It has so many interesting things to say about stories and storytelling. I also listened to the audiobook of The Star of Kazan by Ava Ibbotson. This is a book that we have a lot of in the kids section of the bookstore that I work at, so I wanted to read it to be able to recommend Ava Ibbotson's books more, and now I understand the appeal. I really love her writing. It's got this kind of humor to it that I think really appeals to adults as well. I have to admit I picked this one up partly because the protagonist's name is Annika, but it definitely exceeded my expectations. I loved the historical setting of Vienna. Even though Annika is kind of this perfect, kind child, I also really loved her and all of the other characters. It did get a little darker than I was expecting, but I still really enjoyed it. The plot is fairly predictable, but the writing and the characters and the setting really carries it along, so I'll definitely be picking up more by Ava Ibbotson. And then I read The Second Mango by Shira Glassman. I have a Lesbury review for that, which I will link down below. The short version is I enjoyed this one. It's a really short, light lesbian fantasy book with dragons, and it's set in a Jewish world. So I enjoyed it. I had some minor issues with it, but I definitely want to keep going with the series, and I hear it gets even better from here. I also finished Shiro's, which, to be honest, has been sitting in my bathroom for years. It's fine. It's little biographies of Shiro's throughout time, and a lot of them I hadn't heard of, and some of them are really interesting, but it is written in the 90s, so it feels a little bit outdated. There was some transphobic language used, and it didn't blow my mind. It's not what I would recommend. I also read Bottle Rocket Hearts by Zoe Whittle, and this is kind of a new adult book about a girl in Montreal and her experience with the queer political scene and with her older girlfriend who is not the most healthy person to be in a relationship with. This one was really well written and well done, but it was also painful to read. I just don't think I can read anymore about these toxic relationships and that kind of self-destructive behavior. It hits too close to home. I just can't stand it. I think when I was younger, I would have really loved this book, but now that I've kind of gone out of that stage in my life, it's difficult to read about. So I recommend it in that it's really well done, but expect quite a bleak book. I also listened to the audiobook of Starting from Scratch by Georgia Beers. I'm trying to get a little bit more into romance, so I listened to this lesbian romance book read by the author, and I enjoyed this one. It's about a woman who really enjoys baking, and she has a crush on the bank manager. And it's just a sweet romance. There are some angsty parts to it, and I think I prefer even fluffier in my romance, but I still enjoyed it. I think that Georgia Beers is definitely a romance author that I will keep coming back to. Just because I was feeling really nostalgic, I read a Babysitter's Club book. This is the Babysitter's Island Adventure, super special number 4. When I was a kid, I loved the Babysitter's Club and I read them constantly. I haven't read them since I was like 8, but I don't know, this came in at work and I decided that it was time to be nostalgic. And you know what, I really enjoyed it. I understand why I liked it, and I could kind of just dive right back in. I also love that kind of trapped on an island story. That's always fun. So this definitely was exactly what I was looking for from it. And lastly, I finished More Happy Than Not by Adam Silvera. This one I see recommended over and over again, so I decided to pick it up. It's about a Latino teenager in the Bronx. It's set in a very near future where there is a company that can modify your memories, and basically he tries to get his memories modified to be straight. I found the first third of this a little slow, and then after that I was absolutely devouring the book. I felt like I needed to pick it up whenever I had a spare moment, which I haven't really felt in a while for a book, so I really enjoyed that. But I wasn't expecting just how dark this book is. There should definitely be trigger warnings for homophobia and violence and suicide and quite graphic violence. To be honest, it worries me a little bit how lightly this is recommended. Like, I can understand how it would be a very important book for some people, but it is really dark and bleak, and it presents being gay as a very difficult, dangerous thing, one that might drive you to suicide. And I'm not going to say that that's not the reality for some people, but I think that you kind of have to be responsible in the way that you talk about books like this, because I also think that it could be hurtful if you give it to the wrong person at the wrong time. Which isn't to say they shouldn't recommend it, I just feel like it should come with some trigger warnings if you're going to recommend it, especially to people who are closeted or just coming out or who are in a vulnerable part of their lives. I think that for the right person this would be an incredibly powerful book, but I think that it is one that you should be kind of prepared with what you're going in with. So I think this is a really good book. It just wasn't exactly what I was expecting. And those were all the books that I read in May. Let me know if you've read any of these and what you thought of them, and if you have a wrap-up video, feel free to link it down below and I'll definitely check it out. And thank you for watching.